The vastness of space is filled with countless stars, galaxies, and civilizations, each one more advanced than the last. But in the depths of the galaxy, a new frightening message is being broadcasted across the stars. The signal is coming from the Galactic Council, a body that oversees the peaceful coexistence of countless alien races. But this time, the message is different. It's urgent. It's filled with panic. A race known as the Viroxy has broadcasted an emergency warning, and the entire galaxy is listening. The Viroxy are an ancient species, known for their ruthlessness in battle and their advanced technology. Their ships are faster than most, and their weapons can tear through planets. They have conquered countless worlds. But today, they speak of something new, something they've never faced before, a threat that has sent ripples of fear through their once invincible ranks. And that threat is Earth. The broadcast begins with a cryptic message from the Viroxy commander, a tough and battle-worn leader who has seen countless wars and victories. But his voice, usually full of authority and strength, trembles slightly as he speaks to the galaxy. We underestimated them, he begins. Now we fear them. The screen flickers for a moment, then shifts to a view of the Viroxy fleet, floating in deep space. Their ships, enormous and sleek, seem to glow with a dark energy. The commander's face appears on the screen. He is covered in scars, his eyes burning with frustration and fear. He begins to tell his story, the story of the first encounter with humanity. When the Viroxy first arrived on Earth, they expected an easy victory. Humans were nothing more than primitive creatures in their eyes. Their technology was outdated, and their defenses were laughable. The Viroxy didn't expect much resistance, but what they encountered was not what they had anticipated. The humans fought back. At first, it was small skirmishes. Humans used rudimentary weapons against the Viroxy forces. The aliens, with their advanced technology, thought it was a joke. They wiped out human cities with ease, but then something unexpected happened. The humans didn't back down. They didn't surrender. Instead, they adapted. The Viroxy commander speaks of how humanity's resilience took them by surprise. Humans don't give up. They find ways to survive, to fight, to outsmart even the most powerful foes. And the Viroxy learned this the hard way. The humans may have been outmatched technologically, but they made up for it with something the Viroxy had not considered: their unpredictability. The humans used guerrilla tactics, hiding in the terrain, attacking when the Viroxy least expected it. They fought as if they were defending their very existence, because to them, they were. It wasn't just a battle for survival, it was a battle for their home, for their families, for their world. The Viroxy had never encountered a species like this before. It was as if Earth itself had come alive, fighting alongside its inhabitants. Every attack by the Viroxy was met with a clever counterstrike by the humans. The Viroxy began to realize that their usual tactics were not enough. The commander's tone grows darker as he recounts how their fleet, which had once been unstoppable, was now struggling. One by one, Viroxy warships began to fall, not because the humans were stronger, but because they were smarter. The Viroxy commander's voice cracks as he says, "They are not like any species we've encountered. They are far more dangerous. We thought we could crush them easily, but they outwitted us. We underestimated their will to fight. And now, they've made us afraid." As he speaks, the camera shifts to show the remains of the Viroxy fleet, destroyed ships drifting aimlessly in space. The once mighty armada that had come to conquer Earth is now in ruins. A few damaged warships remain, limping back to their homeworld, their once proud commanders broken by the realization that they had failed. The Viroxy commander pauses for a moment, his face hardened. He's no longer just speaking to the Galactic Council. He's speaking to anyone who will listen. "We can't let this happen again," he says. "We must destroy Earth before it's too late." The broadcast cuts to a scene of the Viroxy fleet retreating, the remnants of their once mighty ships floating helplessly in space. The commander's voice, full of anger and fear, can still be heard in the background. We will not make the same mistake again. Earth is not just another planet. They are a threat that must be eradicated. But as his words hang in the air, the camera zooms out to reveal something even more terrifying. A fleet of human warships, cloaked and invisible, emerging from behind the remnants of the Viroxy fleet. The Viroxy commander's worst fear is realized. The humans have developed cloaking technology, something the Viroxy never thought possible. These invisible ships, hidden from the eyes of the enemy, are now closing in on the Viroxy fleet. The humans have adapted once again. This time, they're not just fighting for survival, they're hunting their enemies. The camera shifts to a view of the Viroxy fleet, still reeling from their previous defeat. The Viroxy are struggling to make sense of the situation. Their technology has failed them. The human warships are everywhere, striking from the shadows, ambushing the Viroxy fleet at every turn. The aliens, once confident in their superiority, are now scrambling to defend themselves. The Viroxy commander's eyes widen with disbelief as he watches the human ships slip through their defenses, disabling their weapons with precision strikes. His voice cracks as he realizes that this time, they won't be able to escape. "We have no choice," he mutters. "We must destroy Earth at any cost." The tension reaches its peak as the Viroxy fleet desperately tries to regroup. Their ships fire blindly at the invisible humans, but the humans have already moved, using their superior knowledge of the terrain to stay one step ahead. The camera zooms in on the Viroxy commander's face, a look of pure determination mixed with fear. "We will crush them. We will make them regret challenging us." But as the scene unfolds, one thing is clear. The Viroxy may have once been the most powerful species in the galaxy, but now they are facing a new, unpredictable force. And that force is humanity. As the battle rages on, the audience is left wondering, will the Viroxy succeed in their mission to destroy Earth, or will humanity's resilience and ingenuity prove to be their greatest weapon? The stage is set. The tension is palpable. And one thing is certain. The fight for Earth is only just beginning. As the broadcast from the Viroxy commander fades away, the screen shifts to a very different scene. Earth. The atmosphere here is heavy. But it's not the fear that weighs on the planet. Instead, it's the sharp, focused tension of preparation. The human race, once underestimated by the Viroxy, is preparing for the war of their lives. This is a moment of awakening. This is the moment when humanity realizes that their survival depends on their ability to outthink, outfight, and outlast their enemies. In the heart of Earth's wilderness, the harsh, unforgiving terrain known as a death world, human soldiers are being put through the most grueling training imaginable. General Alex Bonner, a towering figure in both physical presence and leadership, watches over his troops with a focused gaze. His reputation has been built not just on his combat skills, but on his understanding of the land, the terrain, and the people he commands. His soldiers are no longer just learning how to fight. They are learning how to survive in the wildest, most dangerous environments Earth can throw at them. The conditions here are brutal. The air is thick with humidity, and every step through the jungle feels like it might be the last. Yet in this madness, human soldiers find purpose. They are constantly tested, pushing their bodies and minds to the limits. Through each trial, they grow stronger, faster, and smarter. The Viroxy may have underestimated them once, but the humans have learned something crucial in these harsh conditions. They know how to adapt and endure. Every soldier in Bonner's unit is focused, but there is one thing on their minds: preparation. They are not just preparing for battle. They are preparing to prove to the galaxy that humanity is not a race to be dismissed or taken lightly. Every weapon, every piece of technology, and every strategy they develop is designed with one goal in mind: survival. And the tools they are using are no less impressive. In a hidden underground facility, humanity's best engineers and scientists work tirelessly to develop advanced technology that will level the playing field. AI-driven war machines are being built, machines that can think, react, and fight with a level of precision and intelligence far beyond anything the Viroxy could have expected. These machines are not just weapons, they are soldiers programmed to fight for the survival of humanity. Alongside the war machines, cloaking technology is being perfected. This tech is humanity's secret weapon. It's what allowed them to take the Viroxy by surprise during the first skirmish. With cloaked ships, humans can hide in plain sight, outmaneuvering enemies who rely too heavily on their superior tech. The Viroxy may have their powerful fleets, but the humans have learned how to strike when the enemy is least prepared. But humanity wasn't ready to surrender. They had trained for this day, and now they were going to show the Viroxy just how wrong they were to underestimate them. The moment the Viroxy ships entered Earth's atmosphere, a signal was sent. Across the globe, in hidden bases and underground bunkers, the military began to move. The cloaked human warships, invisible to the enemy sensors, sprang to life. The battle had begun. At first, the Viroxy didn't know what hit them. They expected an easy victory. After all, they had been mocking humanity's strength for years. The humans were primitive, they believed, and their tech was nothing compared to the Viroxy's advanced weaponry. The Viroxy had the power to crush any species they encountered. But the humans weren't going to make it easy. The human warships, using their cloaking technology, appeared from nowhere. They silently surrounded the Viroxy fleet, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And when that moment came, it was devastating. EMP missiles launched from the cloaked ships, hitting the Viroxy vessels with a force that immediately disabled their weapons systems. The Viroxy tried to retaliate, but their advanced lasers and cannons fizzled out, useless against the humans' unexpected tactics. The Viroxy were caught off guard. They had no idea how to respond. Their ships, built to fight in space with overwhelming firepower, were now sitting ducks in Earth's atmosphere. The cloaked human warships continued to strike, hitting vital points on the alien ships, forcing them to retreat and regroup. The battle was far from over, but humanity had delivered the first blow, and it had been a hard one. But the battle wasn't just in space. The Viroxy had landed their ground forces, sending hordes of heavily armored soldiers to capture key cities and military bases. The Viroxy believed that once they took control of Earth's urban centers, the humans would be easy to eliminate. They had no idea how wrong they were. In the heart of the city, General Bonner's soldiers prepared to face the Viroxy head-on. They had been training for this moment, and now it was time to prove their worth. The streets, once full of civilians, were now war zones. Buildings that once stood tall and proud now became battlegrounds, their walls broken and shattered by the sound of gunfire and explosions. The Viroxy had the numbers, but the humans had something far more valuable: knowledge of their environment. The ground forces quickly engaged the enemy in brutal close-quarters combat. The Viroxy soldiers, though advanced in technology and armor, struggled to keep up with the human forces. Human soldiers, agile and well-trained, used the urban environment to their advantage. They moved quickly through alleys, rooftops, and underground tunnels, attacking with precision and speed. They weren't fighting fair, they were fighting smart. The Viroxy soldiers were heavily armored, their bodies encased in nearly impenetrable exoskeletons. Their weapons were powerful, capable of turning a human into nothing more than ash with a single shot, but they were not prepared for the speed and unpredictability of human tactics. Earth's soldiers knew the city like the back of their hands. They used the buildings as cover, setting traps and ambushes for the Viroxy forces. A sudden burst of gunfire would tear through the silence of the night, taking down an alien soldier before they could even react. In one of the most intense firefights, Sergeant Lena Hartman led a small team through the streets of a war-torn city. They were up against a group of Viroxy soldiers who had taken over a high-rise building. The Viroxy were well-positioned, their weapons trained on any movement in the street below. But Lena had a plan. She instructed her team to split into two groups, moving in different directions. As the first group drew the Viroxy's attention, Lena and the second group moved silently through the back alley, scaling the walls of the building. They'd reached the roof where they set up an ambush. When the Viroxy soldiers turned their attention back to the street, Linda's team unleashed a barrage of grenades and gunfire from above, catching the aliens off guard. It was chaos. The Viroxy soldiers tried to retaliate, but the humans were already on the move, disappearing back into the shadows before the aliens could even respond. In a different part of the world, another team of scientists works on experimental weaponry. This technology is designed to be more powerful and more unpredictable than anything the Viroxy have ever seen. It's not about matching the aliens' strength. It's about exploiting their weaknesses. Humanity knows they cannot go head-to-head with the Viroxy on their terms. Instead, they will force the Viroxy into a situation where they are forced to adapt or perish. While all this is happening, General Bonner is not just overseeing the training or the development of weapons. He is also in contact with Earth's AI systems. The artificial intelligence has grown far beyond its original purpose, now serving as humanity's strategic advisor. The AI isn't just processing data, it is predicting the Viroxy's movements, anticipating their attacks, and devising plans to counter them. It's a partnership, humans and AI working together, learning from each other and growing stronger with each passing day. One day, as Bonner reviews the latest tactical simulations, a warning pops up on his screen. It's a message from Earth's AI, and it's urgent. General Bonner, the AI's voice echoes. The Viroxy are coming soon. We must be ready for the war of our lives. The message is not just a statement, it's a call to action. The AI's warning sends a ripple of tension through Bonner's team. They know what this means. The Viroxy will not wait. They will come, and they will come with everything they have. There's no time to waste. The training intensifies. The soldiers push themselves harder than ever, but there's something different now. They know what's at stake. Their families, their homes, their entire world is at risk. And they are the ones who will have to stand and fight. But even with all their training and technology, the humans are still facing an uphill battle. The Viroxy are technologically superior. Their weapons are more advanced, and their fleets are vast. But that's where humanity's strength lies. They know how to survive against the odds. They know how to take risks. They know how to think outside the box. The aliens still underestimate humans. They believe that, with their superior technology, they can easily crush any resistance. But what they don't understand is that humans are not like other species they've conquered. Humans do not simply follow the rules. They break them. They innovate. They do whatever it takes to win. The Viroxy commanders are still too confident in their power, and they continue to underestimate the human spirit. As Bonner walks through the training grounds, he sees his soldiers, men and women who were once ordinary people, but now they are warriors. Each one has been pushed to the limit, and each one has come out stronger. They may not have the most advanced technology in the galaxy, but they have something the Viroxy cannot comprehend: a relentless will to survive. The AI, as always, has calculated the next phase of the battle. It has studied the Viroxy's tactics, their strengths, and their weaknesses. The AI knows how to strike at the heart of the Viroxy fleet, how to outsmart their advanced technology. But it also knows that humanity cannot rely solely on technology to win. The heart of this war will be fought in the minds of the soldiers who are willing to give everything for their planet. The soldiers are preparing for something they've never faced before. The looming threat of the Viroxy hangs over them, but they don't falter. They've trained for this moment, and now it's time to put everything on the line. Bonner knows that this won't be an easy fight. The Viroxy are coming with everything they've got, but humanity is ready. The world is ready. The time for underestimation is over. Humanity will not go down without a fight. As the soldiers gear up for what's to come, Bonner feels a sense of pride. He knows that these men and women will not just fight for Earth, they will fight for each other. They will fight for the future of humanity. And they will fight to prove that they are not weak. The final preparations are underway. The AI continues to give its strategic advice, while Bonner and his team make final adjustments to their weapons, their ships, and their plans. The countdown has begun. The Viroxi are coming, and humanity is ready to face them. The war for Earth is about to begin. The Viroxi fleet had arrived. It was like nothing the people of Earth had ever seen. Gigantic warships, each the size of a city, filled the sky. The stars, once a comforting view, were now overshadowed by the dark, imposing ships of the Viroxi. They descended through the atmosphere like a storm, casting long shadows over the land below. The people of Earth watched in horror as the invasion began, unsure of what to expect, but knowing that their time to fight had come. Meanwhile, other human forces were dealing with the heavy artillery the Viroxi had brought with them. Tanks and armored vehicles rolled through the streets, firing at anything that moved. The Viroxi's ground forces were overwhelming in number, but the humans had something that the aliens didn't: courage and determination. Human soldiers fought fiercely, refusing to back down even in the face of impossible odds. The sound of gunfire, explosions, and shouting filled the air as the battle raged on. In another part of the city, Lieutenant David Reese and his squad were tasked with taking out a Viroxi artillery station that was bombarding the nearby civilian shelters. Reese and his team moved quickly, using their cloaking devices to sneak past the enemy lines undetected. They'd reached the artillery station and planted explosives at the base of the large cannons. The Viroxi were too busy fighting the human forces on the front lines to notice the small group of soldiers planting charges on their equipment. When the explosives went off, the ground shook. The artillery station was destroyed in a massive explosion, and the Viroxi forces were thrown into disarray. The humans took advantage of the confusion, pushing forward and reclaiming the city block by block. It was a slow, grueling process, but with every victory, the humans grew more confident. The Viroxi, on the other hand, began to realize that this was no ordinary battle. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. Back in space, the Viroxi fleet was in retreat. The human warships, cloaked and silent, continued their relentless attack, picking off the alien ships one by one. The Viroxi had thought they could overpower humanity, but the humans had fought back with unexpected strength. The tide of the battle had shifted, and the Viroxi were now the ones on the defensive. For the first time in this war, the Viroxi were starting to question their superiority. They had underestimated humanity's will to survive, and they had paid a heavy price for it. The humans had proven that they could not only fight back, they could win. As the battle raged on, General Bonner watched from the command center. He knew that this was just the beginning. The Viroxi would return, and they would come with greater force. But for now, humanity had struck the first blow, and that was enough to give them hope. The war was far from over, but the first clash had shown that humanity was not a race to be underestimated. The Viroxi had learned it the hard way, and now the humans would continue to fight, fighting for their survival, for their planet, and for the future of the human race. The day had finally arrived. The Viroxi fleet descended from the stars, enormous warships blotting out the sun as they approached Earth. Their presence was overwhelming, massive and menacing. The ships seemed almost invincible, each one brimming with technology beyond human understanding. Their weapons, capable of destroying entire cities with a single shot, were now aimed directly at Earth. Humans had been warned, but nothing could prepare them for this scale of invasion. The Viroxi believed they would easily crush Earth's defenses. After all, humanity was still far behind in terms of technology compared to the mighty Viroxi Empire. The aliens had assumed that Earth's primitive technology and small population would make it an easy target. They were wrong. In response to the invasion, Earth's military forces were already prepared. Hidden underground bunkers, military bases, and secret defense systems were put into motion as the first Viroxi warships began their descent. The human forces, led by General Alex Bonner, moved swiftly to deploy their advanced countermeasures. The battle began with an unexpected twist. As the Viroxi fleet entered Earth's atmosphere, they thought they would see a desperate and uncoordinated defense. but they were met with silence. At first, no enemy ships appeared, no fighter jets came to challenge them. The Viroxy commanders felt a slight unease. Something was wrong, but they couldn't quite put their finger on it. Then, without warning, the human warships struck. The humans had perfected cloaking technology. Their ships, once invisible to radar, now had the ability to appear and disappear in the blink of an eye. From nowhere, human warships began to emerge, attacking the Viroxy fleet from all angles. The first missile strike hit hard, sending shockwaves through the alien ships. EMP missiles tore into their systems, disabling their weapons and shields, leaving them vulnerable. The Viroxy had no idea how to react. Their advanced weaponry fizzled out, and their ships began to spiral into disarray. The Viroxy fleet had thought they were the invincible ones, but in that moment, they learned a harsh truth. Humans could fight back, and they could fight dirty. The surprise attack from the cloaked warships was only the beginning. As the Viroxy scrambled to regain control of their vessels, the human ships continued their assault, moving swiftly and stealthily, striking where the aliens were weakest. Each successful strike caused a ripple of panic within the Viroxy ranks. The humans' guerrilla tactics were proving to be a nightmare for the technologically advanced invaders. On the ground, things were just as intense. The Viroxy had landed their forces, sending their heavy troops into Earth's cities, expecting to quickly overpower human resistance. But again, they were wrong. The human forces were ready. The Viroxy soldiers, armored in advanced exoskeletons and armed with powerful energy rifles, poured into the cities. Their objective was clear: crush the human resistance, secure key locations, and show the galaxy that Earth was no match for their might. But the humans fought differently from what the Viroxy had expected. In the heart of the city, the ground forces were engaged in brutal urban warfare. Human soldiers, using their knowledge of the terrain, quickly adapted to the chaos. They didn't fight like the Viroxy, standing in open fields and using heavy artillery. No, the humans used their environment to their advantage. They knew every alley, every rooftop, every building, and they used this to outmaneuver the Viroxy at every turn. In one section of the city, a team of human soldiers led by Captain Emily Hawk found themselves face to face with a group of Viroxy soldiers. They had been tracking the Viroxy for hours, knowing they would eventually make their way through this neighborhood. Emily's squad was well prepared. With cloaking devices and weapons primed, they moved silently through the city. As they reached their destination, they noticed the Viroxy forces were spread out, looking for trouble. Without warning, Emily gave the signal. Her team opened fire, shooting from multiple positions, forcing the Viroxy to react quickly. The aliens, despite their advanced armor, struggled to adapt. The humans were fast, darting between buildings, using every bit of cover they could find. The Viroxy, with their heavy exoskeletons, were slower, unable to respond quickly enough to the humans' hit-and-run tactics. The humans knew how to fight in the city. The Viroxy didn't. As Emily's team wiped out the first wave of Viroxy soldiers, reinforcements arrived. The humans didn't hesitate. They set traps, using grenades and explosives to disable enemy vehicles and take out large groups of soldiers. The Viroxy, once so confident in their superiority, were beginning to feel the sting of humanity's resourcefulness. In another part of the city, Sergeant Max Donovan's team was tasked with holding off a group of Viroxy invaders who had managed to breach a critical building. Max and his squad had been waiting for the Viroxy to arrive, and they were ready. They set up positions in the building's lower levels, knowing the Viroxy would come in through the front doors. Max's team was quiet, their weapons aimed at the hallway just outside. The Viroxy soldiers were loud, confident, and unaware of what awaited them. As they stormed into the building, they were immediately ambushed. The humans had prepared for this. The first shots rang out, and the Viroxy were thrown into chaos. With their armor nearly impenetrable, they tried to push forward, but the human soldiers were too quick. The urban environment worked in the humans' favor, allowing them to stay one step ahead. The battle was intense. On the streets, explosions rocked buildings. Gunfire filled the air. The Viroxy soldiers were strong, but the humans were relentless. They fought with an energy and determination the Viroxy had not anticipated. The aliens' superior technology was no match for the humans' will to survive. Back in space, the human fleet continued its relentless assault on the Viroxy warships. The Viroxy, now facing two fronts, one in space and one on the ground, were beginning to realize that this wasn't going to be the easy victory they had hoped for. Their advanced weapons and tactics were failing against the humans' unconventional warfare. They had underestimated the human capacity to adapt, to innovate, and to fight back. The Viroxy began to regroup, attempting to launch counterattacks, but it was clear that they were losing control. The humans were everywhere, on the ground, in the air, and in space, attacking from all directions. Every time the Viroxy thought they had the upper hand, the humans would strike again. The tide of the battle was shifting, and the Viroxy were slowly being pushed back. Human soldiers didn't stop. They were tired, hungry, and many of them had lost comrades, but they kept fighting. Each victory, each small win, gave them more strength. They fought for their families, for their cities, and for their planet. The Viroxy were not just fighting against an alien species, they were fighting against the spirit of humanity, a spirit that refused to die. The battle was far from over, but humanity had already proven one thing. They were not to be underestimated. The Viroxy might have the technology, but the humans had something far more dangerous: their determination to survive. The first clash had begun, and the Viroxy were beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake by invading Earth. The battle raged on, and the Viroxy were still pressing their attack on Earth. Cities were burning, and the ground was littered with the fallen, human and alien alike. But for the soldiers on the front lines, it wasn't just about winning the battle. It was about protecting their families, their homes, and the people they loved. The cost of war was becoming painfully clear with every passing day. General Alex Bonner, the leader of humanity's resistance, had been at the heart of the conflict from the very beginning. He was known for his strategic mind, his calm demeanor under pressure, and his ability to inspire his troops. But even someone as strong as Bonner had his breaking point. One morning, a message came through. The Viroxy had launched an attack on a civilian sector. The humans quickly mobilized to intercept, but the aliens were already on the move, and the situation was dire. Captain Maria Layton, Bonner's closest friend and a fierce warrior in her own right, was part of the team sent to protect the civilians. Bonner knew Maria well. She had been by his side in countless battles, always with a calm and determined attitude. She was the type of person who would never back down, no matter the odds. It wasn't just her skill with a weapon that made her invaluable. It was her heart. She had a deep love for her country, for the people she fought to protect, and for her fellow soldiers. Her loyalty was unmatched. As the battle unfolded, Bonner and Maria's teams found themselves in the thick of the action. The Viroxy had their advanced weapons and armor, but the humans were relentless. Bonner knew that every moment they held the line gave the civilians a chance to escape to safety. But the Viroxy were cunning, and their weapons were far more advanced. The odds were against them. Amidst the chaos, Bonner's worst fear came true. A blast from a Viroxy grenade tore through the ground, sending debris flying. The explosion hit right where Maria was standing. Bonner, who had been leading his troops from a distance, heard the blast and rushed toward her location. His heart pounded in his chest as he sprinted through the smoky ruins, praying that he was too late. When he reached her, he found Maria lying on the ground, her uniform torn, blood staining the earth beneath her. She was still alive, but barely. Bonner knelt beside her, trying to stop the bleeding, but Maria's breath was shallow. She looked up at him, her face pale but calm. "Alex," she whispered, her voice weak but steady. Tell them we did everything we could. Tell them we fought." Bonner's chest tightened. He couldn't find the words. He had seen death before, but not like this. Not someone he loved. "You're not going anywhere, Maria. You hear me? You're going to make it through this," he said, trying to sound confident, but the doubt in his voice betrayed him. Maria smiled faintly, the corner of her mouth twitching. "I'm proud of what we did. We gave them everything." With a final breath, Maria closed her eyes, her body going limp in Bonner's arms. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Bonner sat there, holding her, his mind racing, his heart heavy with the weight of her loss. He had lost comrades before, but Maria was different. She had been his rock, the one person who had always been there to remind him what they were fighting for. Now she was gone, and the world felt darker without her. The moment of grief was brief. The battle was still raging, and the enemy didn't wait for anyone to mourn. Bonner stood up slowly, his mind focusing on the mission ahead. He knew what he had to do. Later that evening, as the battle subsided, Bonner stood by a makeshift grave marked with a small wooden cross. The soldiers who had fought beside Maria gathered around, paying their respects. In the midst of the chaos, in the midst of war, there was a solemn silence as they honored their fallen comrade. Bonner stood at the front, holding Maria's dog tags tightly in his hand. The weight of her death was unbearable, but he knew that he couldn't let it break him. He could feel her spirit within him, pushing him to keep fighting. He looked down at her dog tags, the cold metal biting into his palm. "We fight for each other," Bonner said quietly, his voice carrying across the group. "We fight for survival. We fight because we can't afford to lose any more of us. Maria wouldn't want us to give up. She fought for this planet, for our families, for our future." The soldiers nodded in agreement, their faces set with determination. The loss of Maria had hit them all hard, but they knew that they had to keep going. The war wasn't over. The Viroxi were still out there, still threatening their world, and they couldn't let Maria's sacrifice be in vain. Bonner turned to face his men and women, his voice rising with the passion that had always fueled his leadership. "We're going to make them pay for what they've done. For every life they've taken, we will take two. For every city they've destroyed, we will rebuild. And for Maria, we will win this war." The soldiers' eyes burned with newfound resolve. It wasn't just about the planet anymore. It was about the people they had lost, about the ones they had to protect. They had seen the horrors of war, and they had felt the pain of loss. But they also understood that they couldn't stop. They couldn't let fear or grief hold them back. As the day turned to night, Bonner found himself alone for a moment, standing on the edge of the battlefield. The stars above seemed so far away, a reminder of how small Earth truly was in the vastness of the universe. But despite their smallness, the humans had one thing the Viroxi didn't, a bond that couldn't be broken. They had each other. They had their families, their friends, and their shared hope for the future. In that moment, Bonner made a vow. He would not let the Viroxi win. Not while there was still breath in his body. Not while there were soldiers like Maria willing to lay down their lives for the cause. The war had cost them dearly, but it had also awakened something powerful within humanity, a strength that no enemy could ever crush. The loss of Maria had been devastating, but it had ignited a fire in Bonner and his troops. The battle was far from over, and humanity was more determined than ever to see it through. No matter what it cost them, they would fight to the bitter end. Bonner wiped his tears away, wiped the grief from his face, and turned back toward the battlefield. The war would continue, and he would be there, leading the charge. Because Maria's spirit would live on in every fight, in every victory, and in the hearts of the soldiers who fought for humanity's survival. The war had dragged on for months, but the humans had not given up. Despite being outmatched by the Viroxi's superior technology and overwhelming forces, they had managed to survive, adapt, and learn from every battle. Now the tide of war was turning. It was time for humanity to strike back in a way the Viroxi never saw coming. General Bonner, now a symbol of human resilience, gathered his forces for a final, daring assault. The target was the Viroxy flagship, the heart of their military power. The plan was risky. No one had ever attempted to board the flagship and survive, let alone capture or disable it. But Bonner and his team had one advantage the Viroxy never anticipated: humanity's relentless ingenuity and the advanced AI-driven strategies they had developed over the course of the war. "We'll hit them where it hurts," Bonner said, his voice steady but filled with determination. "Our technology has evolved. We know their weaknesses. It's time to finish this." Human forces, united in purpose, launched the assault. The battle began in space, with cloaked human warships appearing out of nowhere, launching a barrage of missiles aimed at disabling the flagship's defenses. The Viroxy were caught off guard as their powerful shields began to flicker and fail. They had underestimated the humans' ability to adapt to their technology, and now they were paying the price. But that was only the beginning. The real battle would take place on the flagship itself. Bonner and his elite squadron boarded a stealth shuttle and made their way toward the enemy ship, ready to infiltrate and strike at the heart of the Viroxy command. The shuttle docked with the flagship's lower hangar bay, and Bonner and his team disembarked, prepared for the fight of their lives. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was tense and cold. The Viroxy were formidable, but the humans had learned how to fight them. With every battle, they had studied the enemy's movements, tactics, and weaknesses, and now they were ready. As they moved deeper into the heart of the flagship, the first wave of Viroxy soldiers appeared, coming at them with weapons drawn. The human soldiers didn't hesitate. They unleashed the full force of their training, using advanced combat drones to flank the enemy while their own troops pushed forward, taking out guards one by one. The Viroxy fought back fiercely, but the humans were quicker, more agile, and more determined. The AI-driven drones swarmed the battlefield, creating confusion and chaos among the alien soldiers. Each explosion sent shockwaves through the corridors, rattling the Viroxy forces. Human ingenuity shone through in every corner of the fight. A team of soldiers hacked into the Viroxy's communication systems, sending out false orders to confuse their ranks. Another team managed to bypass the ship's security systems, allowing Bonner's forces to reach the flagship's central command deck. Explosions echoed down the hallways as the human forces disabled key systems, including the flagship's primary weapons and shields. The Viroxy, still trying to fight back, found themselves increasingly vulnerable. The bridge of the flagship, once a symbol of invincibility, was now a battleground. Bonner and his team had made their way inside, and the final confrontation was about to unfold. The Viroxy general, a towering figure with glowing red eyes, stood at the command center, looking out at the chaos. He had realized, too late, that the humans had found a way to destroy his forces from the inside. The battle was slipping away from him. "Where is your backup?" Bonner taunted, his voice echoing in the command center. "Did you think we were just going to lie down and die? This is what happens when you underestimate us." The Viroxy general growled in fury, realizing that his once imposing fleet had been torn apart by the human strategy. But he wasn't ready to give up. With a hiss, he ordered his remaining forces to launch a counterattack. The final battle on the bridge was intense, with alien soldiers closing in on Bonner's team from all sides. Explosions and gunfire filled the air, and the humans fought back with everything they had, knowing that the fate of the war rested on this moment. But then, something unexpected happened. The Viroxy general, realizing that his forces were rapidly losing ground and that his ship was falling apart, made a shocking decision. He called for a retreat. The alien fleet began to withdraw, leaving the humans standing victorious on the flagship's bridge. The general, with a final glare of hatred, turned to make his escape, but Bonner wasn't going to let him go that easily. In a moment of pure determination, Bonner and his squad launched a full assault on the general. The Viroxy leader fought back with a savagery that could have crushed any lesser human, but Bonner and his team were relentless, After a brutal exchange of blows, they managed to subdue him, capturing him alive. With the Viroxy general in custody, Bonner stood tall, breathing heavily as his soldiers gathered around him. This was the moment they had been fighting for. The humans had not only defeated the Viroxy in battle, but they had also captured their most important leader. The war was shifting in humanity's favor, and the Viroxy had no choice but to listen to the terms of peace. The general, battered and bruised, stood before Bonner, his once proud posture broken. The humans had won, but there was still much to do. "You have one chance," Bonner said, his voice cold but resolute. "If you want peace, it will be on our terms. No more killing. No more war. You will leave our planet and never return." The Viroxy general, his eyes filled with contempt, but also a begrudging respect, nodded slowly. He had lost. The humans had proven their worth, and they had proven that they were not to be underestimated. Bonner could see the change in the general's eyes. He knew the war was over. Humanity had won. As the general was taken away, the remaining Viroxy forces retreated from the planet, leaving Earth and its people in peace. The battle for survival had been won, but the cost had been high. Lives had been lost, cities had been destroyed, but humanity had endured. They had proven that no matter the odds, they would always rise up. They had struck back with everything they had, and they had won. The war was over, and humanity stood victorious, not because they had superior technology or more firepower, but because they had something the Viroxy could never understand: the power of unity, determination, and the will to fight for each other. As Bonner looked out at the horizon, he knew this was just the beginning. The Viroxy had been defeated, but there were still challenges ahead. But for now, humanity had earned a moment of peace. They had turned the tide of the war, and they had proven that nothing, not even an alien empire, could ever break their spirit. The fight for survival had led them to victory, and it was a victory that would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. The final moments of the war were drawing near, and the Viroxy general, now captured and held by the humans, stood in a dimly lit room aboard one of Earth's warships. His once proud figure was hunched, his face bruised and battered from the relentless human assault. He had never imagined that his powerful empire could be brought to its knees by a species so seemingly weak and insignificant. But now, as he stood before General Bonner, the truth was undeniable. Humans were not just survivors. They were fighters, and they would not be subdued. The general paced in front of him, his mind racing with the events that had led them here. A few months ago, the Viroxy had been certain of their victory. Earth was nothing more than a speck in the galaxy, an insignificant planet with primitive technology, barely able to defend itself. Yet the humans had outsmarted them at every turn, using their resourcefulness and cunning to overcome obstacles that should have been insurmountable. As Bonner stared at the Viroxy general, the weight of the war seemed to settle in the room. The war that had cost so many lives, both human and alien. The general, once so sure of the Viroxy's superiority, had been humbled. There was no denying it anymore. Humans were unpredictable, and that unpredictability made them dangerous. It was a quality the Viroxy had never understood. But now they feared it. "You've seen what we're capable of," Bonner said quietly, his voice filled with both sadness and determination. "Your empire attacked us, thinking we were weak. You thought we would break, but we didn't. And now we've beaten you." The Viroxy general, his glowing red eyes dimming in defeat, spoke for the first time since his capture. "I never believed your race could be so relentless. You should have crumbled under the pressure, but you didn't. That's what scares us about you. You're unpredictable. You can't be controlled." Bonner nodded slowly, acknowledging the truth in the general's words. The Viroxy had underestimated humanity, thinking their technology and power would be enough to crush Earth. But humans had fought for survival, not because they were strong in the traditional sense, but because they were willing to fight for each other. And that, in the end, had made all the difference. The general's eyes flickered with a mix of admiration and fear. I should have never underestimated you. You're not the apex predators of this galaxy, but you will never be the prey again. Bonner stepped closer, his gaze firm and unyielding. We are not the apex predators of this galaxy, but we will make sure we're never the prey again. There was a long silence between them, as the weight of Bonner's words hung in the air. The Viroxy general, once so sure of his own superiority, now found himself faced with a choice. The humans had defeated his empire, and now they held the power to decide the fate of his people. Your people are defeated, Bonner continued, his voice now softer, yet still filled with the authority of someone who had earned their victory. You can leave, return to your home, and live in peace, or you can face humanity's wrath, which I promise will be unlike anything you've ever seen. We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting to protect our future, and we will never stop. The general, broken and humbled by the sheer will of the humans, stood there for a long moment, contemplating his options. His once proud empire had crumbled, and now, in the face of humanity's unwavering resolve, he saw no path forward except one. There was only one choice that would allow his race to survive, and it wasn't the path of war. I choose peace, the Viroxy general finally said, his voice heavy with defeat. You are the future of this galaxy. I see that now. The Viroxy will accept your terms. Bonner didn't smile. There was no joy in victory, only the quiet understanding that peace, though hard-won, was the only way forward. Good, he replied simply. Then let's make sure it lasts. As the general was taken away to be held in custody, Bonner looked out at the Earth's fleet through the window. The war was over. The Viroxy had been defeated, their general captured, and their forces had retreated. The human race had survived, but the cost had been high. They had lost many, both soldiers and civilians alike. The scars of the war would remain, but they had proven one thing. Humanity would never be the prey again. The camera zoomed out to show Earth's fleet, poised and ready. They weren't just defenders anymore. They were protectors of their home and the future of the galaxy. Humanity had shown the galaxy that they could stand tall, even in the face of overwhelming odds. But this wasn't the end of the journey. It was only the beginning. There would be other threats, other challenges, and other enemies to face. But for now, humanity had earned a hard-won peace. As Bonner stood there, watching the ships of Earth's fleet ready themselves for whatever came next, his thoughts drifted to the future. He knew that their survival was no longer in question, but their place in the galaxy was still uncertain. What would happen when other alien species learned of their strength? Would they seek to conquer them, or would they recognize the humans as equals? Only time would tell. But Bonner was ready for whatever came next. We are not the apex predators of this galaxy, he said again, his voice steady and resolute. But we will make sure we're never the prey again. The camera continued to pull back, the fleet in full view, as Earth's future was written in the stars. Humanity had proved that, no matter the odds, they could overcome anything. The final battle had been fought and won. And now, with peace on the horizon, Earth would stand ready for the challenges ahead. As the screen faded to black, the audience was left with a sense of hope and awe. Humanity had faced the darkness of war and emerged victorious. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would the humans who had fought to protect their future. They had proven that, in the end, it wasn't just about strength or technology. It was about the will to survive, and the unbreakable spirit that made them human.